Hey everybody, this is David at Barnyard Bees. It's been raining the last 3 days. It's been cold, very cold. It started Friday was a pretty good day, but Saturday, Sunday, Monday, a lot of rain and cold. And the bees have babies, a lot of eggs, a lot of brood, and pretty much for 3 days they're held up inside the hive. Even though we do feed them sugar water this time of year to get the populations built up, they'll eat from the hive top feeder, but there's one thing missing, and this message is very important to the new beekeeper and even the advanced beekeeper. You need a pollen source. And when it's been rainy, even if it pours the rain down and the sun comes out, that pollen is pretty much disabled on the plant for some time until it either dries out or reproduces more. So I want to get this message out to people, especially in areas where there's a lot of rain. Now the bees right now are very active, even early. It was 53 degrees when I checked a little while ago, but they have been active for some time because they was desperate to get out of the hive and to get to their sources of pollen. Well, it's been wet, so even today, even though it's nice out, it's going to be a beautiful day. Their pollen's going to be wet. They're going to be limited. So what do they do and what do they eat? Well, I'll show you what we do. Now, you can keep pollen patties in your hive, and that's okay. You got to remember to when you use pollen patties, you use a very small amount. If you have a small hive or a package installed or a small nuke about the size of a 50-cent piece is plenty. You don't want to go too much because it will attract hive beetles. So that's one way that you can provide pollen for your bees. Now, what we like to do is, and I'll show you right over here, we open feed, and I talked about this a little bit in the previous video, but I really want to highlight on this especially today and explain the importance of keeping your bees fed with pollen. Now here's an example. Last week when it was pretty sunny out, there was a few bees, but not like there is today around this pollen feeder. And the reason being, these bees know that their sources right now will be disabled for a certain amount of time until everything dries back out and the flowers and such start producing pollen again. So when you open feed like this, and what we use is what's called Ultra Bee from Man Lake. It's the best pollen substitute that you can get. The bees love it. We feed them 100% Ultra Bee, and we used to mix it with half flour. We'd put like 2 cups of flour, 2 cups of pollen substitute, and a cup of sugar, and that's what we'd use. But anymore, we just go with 100% Ultra Bee, and it's got a lot of protein in it, and the bees absolutely love it. Now, in my opinion, a dry pollen source is a little bit better than a pollen patty, because the bees, they seem to work it better. They seem to, now they will take onto a pollen patty, but we like doing this better because the bees can take in as much as they want and as much as they need. And there's no guesswork in it. You know, I mean, if a pollen patty's all you have, most definitely use it. But if you have a way to feed pollen, now one way you can do it, and if I had one set up I would show you, is just take an old hive and just like it was set up to have bees in it, slide you a little cake pan, a little bread pan, a little aluminum foil bread pan, and put you some pollen substitute inside there. And once those bees find that, then it'll stay dry inside that hive. So you're pretty much, there's no frames in that hive, and you just have a cake pan sitting in there, or aluminum pan filled up, or put you about an inch of pollen in there, and it works very well. We've done that too. We actually got this feeder here because we've got so many hives now that this is just more convenient and easier for us. And this thing's completely waterproof. We've had a lot of wind and a lot of rain, and it's the way the entrance goes in and it's tapered upward, it keeps the pollen dry. And we've had a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and it stayed bone dry. So it's staying really good. So regardless of how you do it, now my belief, and here's what I believe, I don't believe that pollen is solely for baby bees. I just don't believe that. And the reason I don't, because a lot of times when people have dead outs through the winter time, they'll go through their hive. They know they didn't have mites because they sent the bees off to get checked and come back as 0 mites. They know they had plenty of ventilation. They know it didn't get too cold for the bees to die. They know they had plenty of honey. The only thing the hive was missing was pollen. It was bone dry in a lot of cases. Bone dry, no pollen. Their pollen sources run out, and the bees starved. They starved because of lack of protein. Now, that's my belief, and I've talked to a lot of commercial beekeepers, and it's the same story over and over. And I ask them, you know, when you went in, what did you see? What was missing? They said, well, it had plenty of honey and it had plenty of ventilation. I said, how was your pollen sources? And most of the time it was the same story. So, well, it didn't have hardly any, if any at all. So that right there tells you something. Keep your bees fed. And even for some reason, if they don't need it, well, they just won't take it. They just won't take the pollen if they don't need it. Sometimes in the dirt, when you get in August, a lot of people start feeding heavily with sugar water, which is good because they'll need it as well. But don't forget to feed the pollen. They need pollen as much as they need that sugar water. So I want to talk about that. I want to get that message out because people are installing packages, people are doing splits. They're setting up their nukes, their bee yards. This is prime time right now. We're in April. Right now is prime bee time, at least in North Georgia. And I know as time goes on, you know, it may be later in April or into May further north. But for this area in North Georgia, this is prime time right now. This is the time that your bees need taken care of. You need to feed them and make sure they got pollen. These bees are desperate today. They're getting out and they're looking for pollen sources, I can assure you. All their hive top feeders are full. So they got plenty of sugar water. So I wanted to talk about that. And one other thing I want to talk about, April 21st, we're having our second coffee bee chat at our store at 215 B Market Street, Chatsworth, Georgia. Our phone number is area code 706-971-2700. Come by, see us. It's all free. As the season goes on, we're going to have more and more of these bee chats. We'll probably have one in May, late May. We'll have this one April 21st. It's on a Saturday. We're going to plan these out all on Saturdays. We'll probably have one either towards the end of May or beginning part of June. And then we'll try to have one in July. We're going to have these spaced out probably about 6 weeks apart, just to give beekeepers time to the next stage in beekeeping as the year goes on. Like the first bee chat was, we talked a lot about installing packages and what you need to do to get your bees started. Okay, this chat here, a lot of people's got their packages installed, so we're going to talk about the next step. We'll get people in there and say, okay, here's what you need to do with your bees now. And we'll talk about, you know, subjects according to that. As time goes on, we get into later June and July, we're like, okay, now we're in the dearth. Here's what you need to do to get your bees through. And then things like hive beetles, wax moths, treating for varroa mites. And we're going to try to get people as educated as possible. And we're here to help out the new beekeeper, advanced beekeeper. We don't just sell bees. I promise you, we will teach everyone and take time with everyone. We're not your typical person that just sells bees and queens. When we set up this business, we vowed that we was going to educate and teach people. We weren't going to send them on out the door and say, there's your bees, see you later. We're not going to do that, and we'll never do that. We want people to succeed in beekeeping. And that's what we've done, and we take a lot of calls every day of people calling, asking questions, and people stopping by our bee store. And then we set up this coffee chat and such, and we're just trying to get people educated. Please pass these videos along. They'll help out a lot of new beekeepers and advanced beekeepers. And that's about it for today. Don't forget to like and click on the little bell where you'll be advised. You'll know when our next video comes out. And don't forget to subscribe. And thanks for watching Barnyard Bees.